This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl. What a year, Timothy Seymour Dahl.
What a year! Yeah, it's 14. Well, no, we're 13 days in. It's already pretty dynamic. Just about an hour ago, Trump was impeached. The only president impeached twice.
Well, he's the only president to do a lot of things for the first time, so
Right.
that's no mystery to me.
I mean, Lydia, I'm kind of naive with this. Like, what does a second impeachment exactly do that the first one doesn't cover?
Well, I think that if you have a second impeachment, you are barred from office again, and that's the most important thing that it's going to do. Is that we won't have to, unless he starts his own state. I mean, some states are saying they want us to secede. Maybe he'll start his own state, probably off on an island somewhere because nobody wants him. But
Well, I mean, just as soon as it happened, De Blasio said that gives New York City the right to
yeah.
void the contracts that the Trump organization has all throughout the city. I mean, it's going to be economic disaster. Of course, that's going to be caught up in court quite a bit, but they might be able to do it. I think so. Mitch McConnell's announcing, they're not going to. The Senate's not going to vote on this until the 19th, the day before the inauguration, and he's trying to play all sides. Sunday there's supposed to be there's all these rallies that are going to be happening, pro-Trump rallies, in front of Twitter in San Francisco. Sunday there's a big one in DC, and then of course an inauguration. So I think he's also watching to see how insane that gets, to see, because he wants to cut his hands clean, but he's walking a fine line.
Well, let's just cut right in here and say, well, now there are necessarily 20,000 National Guard in front of the Capitol building, but there are other capitals in buildings in every state.
Yes, McConnell definitely behind the scenes, he's like, this is, hey, idiots, this is our only chance to cut ourselves clean of this guy. And of course, all these Trumpers.
Well, excuse me. And when did he decide to do that? Is when all of the corporations started taking the money away from the GOP.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he only cares about fucking judges, and I think he got what he fucking wanted. The pro-Trumpers are coming back like, well, we're going to be destroyed in the primaries in 2022 if we go against them, and he's saying, well, the primaries won't matter because we're all going to be destroyed. The whole Republican Party is going to be destroyed in the final elections if we go with him. So,
well, I wonder how many names are on the hit list, because this is what I find kind of ridiculous and interesting is the hardcore Trumps are going to turn against the moderate Trumps, and then they want to hang, rape, kill without any necessary reason. You mentioned Twitter, so I want to go into that for a minute, because
please.
I don't believe in censorship of any sort. However, right. Twitter, Facebook, and these other platforms are private companies, so they can decide whatever. It's the same reason I don't have comments on my Facebook, which, by the way, I don't run. Somebody else runs, because I'm not interested in what people have to say on social media. However, I think also what's kind of stupid is when they were causing all their on these platforms, at least they could be followed. And even closing down Parler, it's like, look, you idiots, with all of these surveillance and fusion centers with giant computers, which are supposed to be monitoring everything. Why are you forcing them to go further underground when at least if you knew where they were, you could be doing what you should have been doing all along and then monitoring their intentions?
Right. And that's a good point. But, what people don't realize is the biggest censor in America is the private sector. So on television, when they censor stuff, it's not because the networks are like, oh, boobs or swears. They're afraid that their advertisers, their sponsors, because the sponsors don't want to offend one person because they want maximum profit. They're threatening to pull the plug on things. So I mean, the motivation, a lot of this, and I think probably the lawyers around Facebook and Twitter, we don't know where this Trump shit's going.
Well, again, the question is this. It's not that I don't believe that revolution is necessary at times, but what are you fighting for? And what has he done for you? And what is the point? And actually somebody, I don't know who it was, but when they were having these impeachment hearings, actually somebody, I can't remember, unfortunately, who.
I think I know where you're going.
But he was asking, why did nobody bring one of these protesters in and ask them what their intentions were? Or were they fueled by Trump's rhetoric? Now, look, Trump speaks like mob bosses do. in a coded language that people interpret as they want to, and then they're inspired to do ridiculous things in his names because he's too much of a fucking chicken shit to do anything other than inspire ridiculousness on many fronts. And by the way, hello, what's his last statement that he made? At the failed wall. This guy has not succeeded in one goddamn thing. Actually, they say it's opened up because it's opened up passages that weren't there before because trucks are waiting to build something that's not going to be finished being built because you can't even build a wall 1,900 miles long across America, you fucking idiot.
Speaking of walls, I'll go a little off this subject.
Oh, yeah. Bring it back to...
yes. Well, 6 inmates escaped from the Merced County downtown jail in California. They somehow got access to the roof, and then they used a homemade rope and scaled down the wall of some giant building to their quote-unquote freedom. So I always like to hear about a jailbreak. It's ballsy.
Well, you know what? People better start breaking out of jail because it's going to be awfully filled up pretty soon with all of these so-called domestic terrorists. Oh, Trump got his wall. It's around the Capitol.
Well, it might be around him pretty soon.
I think he should be walled up myself.
Well,
but whatever.
Speaking of walled up, Ghislaine Maxwell was declined her second attempt for bail today, and
why?
Well, they're afraid she's going to flee the country. So her next court date will be in July if she's still alive. If she's still alive. Going back to the whole Capitol chaos and that day, Chuck Norris officially released a statement today that he was not at the Capitol. All these people, there's some guy that looked just like
pretty good lookalike.
Well, you know what? I think there was like 20 or 30 guys that look just like Chuck Norris there. It's like they all there is that look to a lot of those guys. But he declined. He said, I wasn't there. It wasn't me. And there was no way I was there. And then he followed by a statement, which I found pretty funny considering his work with Delta Force and Invasion USA and Walker, Texas Ranger. He said, there is no room for violence of any kind in our society. And I am and always will be for law and order. So, I mean,
you know, again, the issue is this. Who's making the laws and the orders? Who's doing the censoring? Who's going to jail? This is all gray area because it really it's decided by whoever usually has the majority vote. And is there a majority vote? And again, just back to the censorship issue. I don't care if I disagree with every Trumper out there, 75 million or however many million there are. I still think they have a right to voice no matter how I disagree or find their statements ridiculous. I don't have to read them. But where does one draw the line? And again, between inflammatory. Look, there's a lot of things that inflame me, which is why I've been talking about politics since Ronald fucking Reagan. So, you know what I'm saying? It's a very tricky subject matter.
It's interesting how one of my least favorite persons, Mitch McConnell, went against Trump. Dick Cheney's daughter, I mean, is going against. Yeah.
All right, let's just recall again because Vice, the movie starring Christian Bale playing the old and the young Dick Cheney, is a fantastic film. And there it is all in red, white, black, and blue. We know the criminality of every previous administration, but none has had the psychotic exuberance of this one. And again, that's why as this goes on and on and on, like some kind of twisted post-apocalypse fairy tale, I start to have more respect for the insanity because it's almost unbelievable. And also, first of all, it shows the rest of the world how ridiculous we are. And it also gives America a taste of how a lot of the rest of the world lives with endless wars, with endless riots, with violence, with murder. And I don't know what more to say about
weird
that.
Dictators. I mean, psychotic. I mean, Dick Cheney was pretty psychotic. Dick Cheney just knows the law. I don't think Trump,
like he followed it.
Trump doesn't know the law, but Dick Cheney knows the law. So and he knows how to maneuver. Supposedly, as I told you a million times, supposedly Dick Cheney has an encyclopedic mind for dirty jokes. So if you're hanging with him, if you're hanging with him for the night, I mean, he's got a
Well,
lot of.
you once asked me if I'd hang with Dick Cheney for the night, and I said, yeah. But then again, he shot his good friend in the face.
Oh yes, he did.
I'm not saying anything.
6 or 7 heart attacks. Currently has a dead Iraq vet's heart in his chest. I mean, it's like performance art jokes. I don't know what's going on. It's pretty brutal. He also
the evil men. I'm sorry to say, the evil men have caused historically forever since the frickin' cave is not stopping. Most of the world is in conflict. There's very few places that aren't in some kind of conflict. And again, mainly most of the conflict is over, as I've said forever, God, land, oil, greed, natural resources. And it's all based on the king's rule, classism followed by racism, followed by sexism. Is this ever going to frickin' change? I mean, once again, do I have to say, what are you afraid? Fear of a female planet? This patriarchal nonsense. And yeah, you can call up who? Margaret Thatcher and who else? Mother Teresa as bad examples of women with power that were corrupt.
Catherine the Great.
Oh yeah, how far back are you fucking going now?
All right. Well,
thank you very much. Just point made. More women in Congress now. Good luck, ladies. That's all I'm saying.
Anyhow, so what are your predictions over this next 6 months, Lydia? I mean, do you think that the non-tweeting, just everyday chaos, the exhausting insanity of the Trump existence, just by that calming down, is that going to calm society down?
I'm not
combined with the vaccine, or
I'm not expecting milk, honey, and roses here.
Okay,
kiddo. Yeah. But the mania has got to, I mean, it's just cyclical. It always is. But then again, the mania might not come from. It's already as a fish rots from the head first. Well, the head of this motherfucking fish, who's about to be impeached again, has already rotted, and that's kind of trickling down. I'm not making any predictions. I can only predict what I'm going to be doing. Having a good time, watching America fulfill its ridiculous initial intentions founded by murderers and religious perverts. And I'm going to continue to do what I do in my own private utopia, communicating with not even necessarily like-minded others, but at least trying to communicate something other than this, or trying to find some sense in this nonsense. I'm going to continue to do what I do. What are you going to do? The same thing. And come over occasionally.
You got to come over occasionally. I mean, I just can't get over the parallels with exactly 100 years ago, like the end of World War I, and you have this collapse of this kind of right-wing German Weimar Republic thing, and then they kind of go dormant as it builds again, and then you have the Roaring '20s after the flu pandemic, which we're about to, the vaccines we're about to go into our own Roaring '20s. I'm predicting, just so when people can get out again. But they're aware of this history, but it's going to come down to the greed of the elite rich, and if you basically create this kind of austerity, especially the payback of all this COVID relief, if you really pin the people down and they're angry because they think they've been cheated with the Trump thing, even though it's false, good luck with that. I mean, it's kind of up to the elected officials to take on these greedy, mentally ill billionaires, and they are mentally ill, by the way.
Back to the lockdown for a minute, which seems like it's endless, and it could be for quite a while more. It's still, and I said this to you before, Tim, it kind of reminds me of being a teenager pre-internet. You're kind of just waiting for something to happen, anything to do. And it also reminds me of, things that our grandmothers had to do, which was like often their partners, their friends would go off to war, not be heard, maybe seen again in 2 or 3 years, maybe not much communication. And we can't even imagine what that situation must have been like. And then when they've waited, and here return the men traumatized and damaged by war, who either become alcoholics or silent or don't want to talk about it, or just, become delinquent or have post-traumatic stress. I mean, that's kind of what this lockdown is like. It's something that historically society goes through over and over again for different reasons. Yeah, what about the women that were straightening out sheets of uranium and plutonium and licking the brushes to get them smooth? Let's not talk about it.
Oh God.
Anyway,
the list is long and brutal.
Don't lick your lipstick brushes, ladies, because your makeup is poisoned.
Well, if on the topic, and I've said it a ton of times to you guys of World War II and just where the planet is right now, the Germany losing that war and with a gun to their head, having to face their failures and the reality of what they brought on, it's turning out more and more to be a blessing. And the colonialized, the winners of the war, the France's, the United States, the England's, the Netherlands, the belief of it, our own exceptionalism is so perverse and refuses to acknowledge where all this power came from, what their role with genocide has been throughout history, and all these places are ill. They're all fucked up.
And also, Tim, back to this point, America has exported war since it could. We came and warred on the people that were here to begin with. And whoever thinks they're an American better look back to how their grandparents and great-grandparents got here, because you might have been born here, but you're not really from here. We're all from somewhere else. 1 in 7 Americans came through Brooklyn to get here. That's your great-grandparents.
My grandfather did, actually.
Yeah, well, a lot of people did. And the thing is, America has exported war, been in war forever, except for 10 years of its history. And now war comes back here. And the war and the enemy is from within. It has to happen eventually. And again, it's how a lot of the world lives all the time. In a state of panic, in a state of desperation, with not enough money, with hunger, no jobs. Why do you think people want to come here? You think they want to come? Anybody who thinks they don't want immigrants here, you better go start growing your own food, motherfuckers. Because you know what? Who's picking your fruit?
Well, let's hope we don't go into a civil war, because listen,
no wars are civil.
Well, yeah, seriously, but honestly, there's no way those people that fucking penetrated not the Pentagon, the Capitol. Pelosi's office is hidden. People had the plans to that building. Her name's not on her door. I mean, these are for security. And the fact is, I have a hunch. I'm probably way off. I think Flynn might be kind of involved. There was some insider bullshit that went down.
I can't imagine there's not going to be a bit of blood on the Capitol lawn between now and inauguration day. I just can't imagine that there's not going to be.
Well, one of the congressmen today, Democrat, was saying he demands everyone's loyalty, but he gives none to anyone.
Proven by not calling in the National Guard when people are threatening, with an actual scaffold outside with Mike Pence's name on it, when his wife and kids are in there as well.
I wish I was a fly in the wall, because Pence and Trump talked yesterday for the first time since the whole chaos thing happened. And I was a fly in the wall. I wanted that conversation.
At least McConnell, one of 2 good things he's ever done in his life, said, "I'm never talking to Trump again." Well, why? You got nothing more to wring from him.
Yeah. So, this is going to be interesting. It's all going to be very interesting. So, Florida wildlife investigators are looking for the person responsible who carved
awful
the name Trump in the back of a wild manatee. Some tour boat on the Gulf Coast was like, what the fuck? And so, this manatee, this poor manatee, those things are like the most dormant, docile blob things ever.
And they're like an giant underwater butterfly.
With like about 500 pounds of fat injected into them. But that's okay. I mean, those things, I'm surprised they're still alive. They just kind of float. And when I lived in Florida for 6 months, I'd be kayaking. Their farts were awful too. They'd be underneath you, and these like bubbles. These bubbles would come up, and you're like, "Oh my god, these manatees keep farting."
Tim, don't ever call me Bubbles again.
Bubbles. That whole kind of like ditzy bleach blonde kind of Rat Pack era kind of showgirl thing. They're all given nicknames like Bubbles and I don't know what else, Bunny, Sparkles, and Yeah, I don't know what that
Boo
even
boo.
whatever that comes from. Should it come back? I don't know. No one would put up with it, I don't think.
All
right.
right.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what more there is to say
Who's
about
the
all
guest?
of
Who's the
this.
guest? Who's the guest this week?
Well, unfortunately, Pat Loud, who made history as part of An American Family in 1973, which was a PBS television documentary. It was really the first reality TV show. And Lance Loud, who was a fixture on the New York late 70s scene, his band, The Mumps, actually, he was the first person to ever come out as gay on television. And their show, An American Family, was very groundbreaking. And we interviewed Pat Loud when we were on the West Coast pre-pandemic. And unfortunately, at the age of 94, and do you remember how glorious she looked? Long white hair, all in white, silver toenail polish, and
I couldn't believe
sandals.
it.
She looked amazing and very spunky. And we are lucky enough to have recorded her and Christian Hoffman for the very next podcast.
She was so sharp, and she was in her 90s. I was like, how is this possible? This person's in their 90s? So hats off to that woman. She was cool. And
Lance Loud was quite a character. He was hilarious. He was, his band had a lot of high energy. Weasel's a fan of the Mumps. High energy, kind of silly songs written by Christian Hoffman. But it was just Lance Loud who came out of American Family and then was kind of on the Warhol scene and doing music. Just a really great character. And to have met his mother, because I had never met her before, as far as I could remember. That's who we have on now. It's the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and our special guest, Pat Loud. This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl. We have a very special guest, extremely lovely at 94 years of age and still raging, Pat Loud, accompanied by Christian Hoffman.
And I haven't raged in many, many years.
Well, you know what? I know you had it in you, honey.
Yeah, I just can't get it up anymore.
That's how I feel about most of the men I know. They just can't get it up anymore. That's why maybe they need to make a female Viagra.
That's not a bad idea.
All right, we'll talk about that later. So a little backstory about you, Pat. You were actually quite groundbreaking in the fact that your family, the Loud family, was the first reality TV show on PBS. Ever. Recorded in 1971, released in 1973, called An American Family.
Yes.
And it was basically about, how did that even come about? Who approached you?
Well, that's such a long story. You don't want to hear that.
Oh, well, I do.
It's a really good story, and go ahead and tell
yeah.
it. The guy was looking for about 14 families, and then he decided to do it
And in
about
Santa
one.
Barbara? Where? Where was he looking?
He was the producer, Craig Gilbert, and he came to Santa Barbara. He was at a cocktail party, and he met my best friend, Mary Every. And Mary said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I'm looking for a family to do a program,
Because
documentary
it wasn't
on."
called reality TV then.
No, there was
There
no
wasn't
reality.
anything.
It was
There was
quite
no
groundbreaking.
background.
And what made you agree to do that?
Because we were stupid.
And you thought that you were pretty.
Oh, we did think that.
I
Well,
remember
anyway.
all of you putting your makeup on before every single scene.
Oh, no, we did not.
All right,
Yes,
so
I do.
break down to
Wow,
us
wow.
exactly. So you say, okay, you meet a producer. He wants to do a documentary, really the first reality TV show, and he convinces you to invade your life.
He said they were doing wanted to do a program that would do one West Coast family, one Midwest family, and one East Coast family. We were only going to do 2 weeks.
And
And after we did a few episodes, early summer, he said, "We want to do it all on you." And I thought, God, we really are more interesting than I thought we were.
and you had how many children at that point?
5.
And one of them was Lance Loud,
Yes.
who became quite an icon and quite quite notorious on the New York scene. But we're talking Santa Barbara 71 now. Is that right? Is that when it was recorded?
Yes.
Yes.
It was released in 1972. It was recorded in 1972.
How were you involved with that, Christian Hoffman?
Christian was Lance's best friend.
And also, the other thing you don't know about Pat is she welcomed everybody into her house, no matter who they were. Like, we would go there and we would try to start a band with every idiot we ever met in high school.
How old were you then, Christian? Were you still in high school?
16, 17.
When Christian
But
was...
she would feed everyone, and she would say that I will take care of you. And then we stayed there for dinner, and then her
When Christian
then
was
husband was
13
there.
years old, he invited me to his birthday party. And I have never forgotten that.
I
And
assume you went.
And you bet your ass
So
I
you
did.
were hanging out with Lance Loud from the age of...
Well, bye-bye.
I'm gonna tell you a secret. Lance Loud and I were never boyfriends.
That's... Nobody
You,
cares.
you can actually be friends with a gay person and not be their boyfriend.
Hey, you've done that with me for decades. But when did you meet Lance? In school? How old?
High
I met
school.
him in high school.
And you are both weirdos,
Yeah.
attracted to the fact that were you drawn together because of the
We
music
were
you liked?
lonely and vacant.
And were you drawn together because of the music you
And
were
Christian
interested in?
had a car.
Yes. He thought he could take advantage of me because I could drive him places.
What music were you into at that point,
The
Christian?
Kings.
Oh.
What are
So,
you,
Pat,
crazy?
As I remember, Christian, Les was crazy about a group called T-Rex.
Oh, excuse me.
yeah.
Here we go
and
with the Lydian
the,
string
vel-
connected
and
to
the Velvet Underground.
Yes, the
T-Rex.
Velvet Underground
So
and
we
T-Rex.
had all those records in common.
Yes.
And then we moved to New York.
So, Pat, you're inviting all of these lonely,
No, I'm
weird-
not inviting them. The
They
kids,
came to you.
They were friends of my children.
All right, and you
My
had
children
5.
lived in my house as much as I lived in my house.
They
And
brought
they had as
friends.
many rights as I did, as long as none of us, overdid anything, and nobody did. We
So-
d-
So I would like to add to that because I started this conversation. All she did was say, if you want to try and start a band, just come to our
Start a
house and
band.
hang out.
Yep.
And they had a garage that had a piano and a drum set and all this
Yeah.
crazy. And every single person who came over there just got to make a big racket.
Which is how you begin making a bigger racket.
Yeah, and that's what she did. She made a home for
All right,
us.
so you're at a cocktail party. Your friend meets a producer. He convinces you that he's going to come and invade your family life for months. It should have been weeks.
we thought weeks. And at that particular time, a lot of people had projectors and they took family pictures. And we thought it was just going to be like that. Another thing of watching your kids jump into the swimming pool and saying, "Oh, look at me, Mom." It was so pedestrian.
So you're a mother of 5 children, but also you must have some kind of musical or artistic inclinations that
Oh,
interest
yes.
you. So, okay. So, I mean, not only were you interested in music and art, but you bred artistic children.
Yes. And Kevin ran for student body president, which he lost. It was close.
All right.
And there were 2 others, and then there was Lance. Did you know from early on? I mean, Lance must have been boisterous from the get-go.
Lance was his own personality. Lance never backed down from showing you who he was.
And so now, how old was he when The American Family was being filmed?
I think he was 18.
But he was already established as kind of a flamboyant personality that knew he had to do something.
Lance had a very quick wit. I'm very slow-witted. I get there after a while, but Lance was just speedo. He could do it so quickly.
What did it?
He knew what the camera was doing, and he knew that
He was made for the camera.
He just said, like, this is my one moment, and I'm gonna
He knew it,
I'm gonna
Christian.
run for it.
He knew it.
Yes.
Christian, how did you feel as just like a friend of the family being then under this surveillance as part of the part of an American Family documentary versus reality TV show?
The weirdest thing is like when I was 17, I was in a full page picture in Rolling Stone.
For doing what?
For doing nothing. And I thought like, oh, that isn't weird. So, when
How
I ran
did your
around,
picture get in there? For what? Where did they take it?
It was for American Family.
Okay, so
I was licking a bear in front of Kernahan's toy store with Lance, and none of that felt weird to me.
Because you knew you were probably destined to do other things.
I didn't even think that. I just thought like, oh yeah, we're gonna be rock stars. And then the weird thing is that we became gay instead of rock stars. That's the one thing that was, I thought like.
But when did it actually, because look, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there was a gay icon or even the presentation or representation of gay on TV in 71, 2, 3.
No,
Lance Loud was the
it?
gay fucking guy. And so
Liberace. I mean,
Liberace.
yeah, Liberace. I mean,
and so we just thought we would go there and make the best band at CBGB's ever made.
Oh, you would go to New
And
York.
they were pretty darn good if you ever heard them. They were great.
I heard them.
Well, also
And
Richard
Christian
Hell
wrote some
invited
wonderful
because
songs.
I worked with him.
Wait, what'd you just say?
I met Richard Hell at Cinemabilia, and he said, like, I know a place you can have a gig, and I thought that'll be fun. And so we went over there, and we thought we were just going to be, after television, maybe the other interesting band. We didn't really realize we would be tagged by having been in American Family.
What did that do to you? I mean, who can even imagine? I mean, now everything's reality TV, but that time it wasn't. What did it actually do to you in your life going through 3 months or more of absolute surveillance? Were they in your house at every moment? The cameraman?
No, they were there from about 10 in the morning till about 7 or 8
Well,
at
that
night.
is plenty.
and was there a point where you're like, what did I get myself
Yeah,
into?
when are you guys getting the hell out of here?
Yeah.
Oh, you bet.
And that happened fairly quickly. They have a sort of they were going to make the story in the editing.
They
and
didn't have a story.
Did you have any idea of what this was going to be
No,
or
had no idea.
represent or
we
define?
thought that they were interested for some strange reason, because we knew what family of home movies were like. And we knew we weren't that interesting because no family is to any other family. They showed us that they were really, really cared about us, that they were concerned about us, but they really weren't. They were looking for roadkill,
Right.
and they
Did
found
you
it.
feel like
Exploitation.
roadkill when you saw it? How is it then at that point to see your life condensed, reduced to probably the most dramatic moments?
It was pretty horrible.
Did you? I mean, did you have to go on medication? How horrified were you?
Well, I probably should have been.
How did you handle it?
I don't know. Through strength, perseverance, and quite a bit of vodka, I think.
And so then going out in society at that point, because
Yes,
when
then what?
they
Yes,
leave the
then
house at
what?
7, they're not really leaving because, well, the filming they are, but afterwards going out and being recognized, how did that feel?
I mean, suddenly you're known for all of the chaos that, look, every family has chaos. But now you're known for the chaos in your family, for having a gay son, for having 4 other children, for your marriage disintegrating. What the hell? That's not all of who you are.
Well, for me, I was divorced from Bill. My family were all getting to the point where they were ready to go off for college, leave home. And I thought,
How were you supporting yourself? Did that pay anything?
well, I had to go to work.
Of course.
I was working in Santa Barbara for the Forum for Contemporary History. And then I got a book contract. And it gave me
write your
quite a
own
bit of
book.
money. And I'm thinking, I could sit up on this hill and have all my children leave, and I could be in this house. And I could drown myself in a bottle of scotch. Or I could take the money that I'm getting from this book contract and take my little girls and go for a year somewhere And I thought they'd say London. I said, I don't care where we go, but let's get the hell out of here. And they did not say London. They said New York. Well, Lance was already in New York. And
When
Christian,
did Lance and Christian go to New York?
they were,
17,
yeah.
No, what year?
73.
72.
You went to New York in 72?
Yes.
What were
With
you
a lot
doing all
of-
those years?
You mean all the years before I was 15?
All those years before you met me? What were you doing from 72?
I was trying to have a band.
So wait, the Mumps were trying to have a band from 72 to 76,
No, I was running around
7?
going to every single New York Dolls concert ever.
That's why we went to New York, me and you.
And then I was trying to figure out what we could possibly do. And then
Where were you living at the time, Christian? Around here and there?
I was living on 14th Street and 7th Avenue.
Christian always had the loveliest apartment, and he had artwork around, and he always had a boyfriend who was a very great cook, and he always got things going.
I've always married for food.
Yeah.
I didn't know, Christian, that you were in New York so early on. Working at Cinemabilia, trying to get the band to happen, being a teenager, watching the New York Dolls. Why I ran away to New York, the New York Dolls.
So we met.
In 70, well, we met later, but I did go there in 73 looking for the New York Dolls. I didn't find you or them then, but whatever.
I saw them at the Mercer Arts Theater.
I have pictures.
And what was the book contract for? A bio, a memoir?
Yeah, a bio, you know. At that time, people wanted to know what people who became famous overnight for doing nothing, absolutely nothing.
So how did it feel for you, who's like basically your job was encouraging others, raising children, not an easy job, supporting the ideas of other people coming up, and now you have a chance after this documentary to create of yourself what happened? How do you do that?
I went to a friend of mine, Ron Bernstein, and I said, Ron, I will work for you for a week for free,
Doing what?
whatever it takes.
In New York.
Yeah. And at the end of the week, let's see how it goes. And so I stayed for like 5 years.
Doing what?
Became an agent, a book agent.
The book, I have it. The first book you advocated.
Oh,
Dancer from the Dance.
Dancer from the Dance.
She found this crazy guy who was like a lonely guy in the New York subway, and she said, I'm going to make his book get published.
Oh, it was a fabulous
Well,
book.
what was he doing in the New York subway? What
it's
was
the
he?
greatest, it is still to this day the greatest gay novel ever written. At the same time, Larry Kramer, Ron Bernstein, was representing Larry Kramer, who wrote a book called Faggots. So I've got this book called Dancer from the Dance, and Ron has Faggots.
Faggot. Which
And
must be
mine was the
outrageous.
best
I mean,
book.
what was Lance doing? Trying to get it up? Trying to find his way? Was he working? What was he doing? Hanging out with Hollywood Lawn?
He was in the Mumps.
At that point, in 73, the Mumps were going?
Yes. We were trying to
You were
write
trying to,
songs
yes.
all the time.
Right.
I was working at Cinemabilia.
Where was he working?
And Richard Hell.
He wasn't working.
He wasn't working.
Yeah, he wasn't
No,
working.
he wasn't. What we did is we were in New York. It was lonely and scary. We didn't know what to do. And every single person I ever met helped me.
And that's what I'm getting at. It's like people just said, we're going to do a show. We're going
Yeah.
to make a movie. We're going to have a band. We're going to play here. That's how it was then. You cannot, you recuperate from that because it'll never be that way again. It was a community of people just going, do a gig, make a
Every
film.
single person I ever met said, I will help you and you can go here and be as stupid as you are and it'll be fantastic.
And you played at the Mud Club.
But the first person was Richard Hell. He was
And that's so
Richard
weird
Hell.
because, and this is again what was interesting about that period. And we're talking 73, 4, 5, before even No Wave, which again expanded some boundaries.
That was one of the most fun periods of my life.
And
it
how
was
how
so
did you get
funny.
involved with the Contortions? Because we were just there.
Well, I was just fucking Bradley, I guess.
What did Bradley Field have to do with the contortions? Bradley Field was the drummer of Teenage Jesus.
And he couldn't drum.
No, he was
Oh,
not.
excuse me. I did teach him. Why did he have to drum? It wasn't about.
You actually told him to have
He didn't-
only a snare.
He didn't want to be in the band, but it was too bad for him.
But you did teach him, and you said only
like
have
a
snare.
monkey. Why was more needed? Less was more, no? And were you openly gay at that point? Or, look,
Yes.
yeah, whatever. Kind of the adventurous.
At CBGB's, there were all these kids we called the Bridget Tuttle group, and they would all come from all the different
Boroughs.
And half of them were straight,
Yeah,
and half of them were gay.
because nobody cared at that point. I mean, nobody
They
who
didn't
was in the
care.
know
They
cared.
were there for the music. And
How do you describe the music of the Mumps, Pat?
I thought it was happy music, and
Which was very unusual in that period of musical history when everything, post New York Dolls was pretty sour, dour, drowning.
yeah, and it was just fun. It was lighthearted. It wasn't like Christian's song, I like to be clean. There were just many.
Christian, who did you think you were like? Who do you think okay? You said the Kinks. Who did you think the Mumps were really in line with?
We were not involved in the punk rock movement very much.
Neither was I.
So we thought we were like Sparks and the Kinks. And that's what we thought.
And also Blondie was inspirational because they were actually
no, she wasn't.
not at that point.
No,
Okay,
I
Sparks and the
didn't-
Kinks.
Never.
No,
Never.
I'm not saying I dislike her. I was just older than that. I felt
Just saying,
about
the
myself
Kinks and the Sparks.
as a pop songwriter, and I felt about you that you were a confrontationalist, that you were going to do something really funny that was crazy.
That nobody would know how funny it was except for you.
Yeah, yes, and that
And you either played
and
at Max's
and
Kansas
that's
City
why I loved it.
or at CBGB's.
How long did the Mumps last for? If you started in 73 for whatever,
1984.
You broke up in 84.
because the Mumps were weird, because other than Blondie, The Fast, there were a few bands that were like happy up pop music. The rest was pretty miserable shit. So you were really going against the grain because you were more in a tradition of pop classics, which is what attracted you to make music. Kinks and Sparks. You were against, but how did you even survive as a band for that long?
I don't really know.
There were good musicians in that band.
Right.
They were
Did
really-
you tour
we
in
were
America?
friends with the
Good.
Marble. Oh yeah, we toured all over America.
Did you have like a booking agent?
what?
Did you have a booking agent? Or did you just arrange the tours like
Joseph
they used to?
Fleury.
All right.
Do you know him?
Yeah.
He managed Sparks.
So the manager of Sparks was actually interested in the Mumps. That must have been nirvana for you.
He took us all over the country.
Did you play with Sparks ever?
Yes.
Well, amazing. What went wrong?
What went wrong? I don't know. I don't really know.
Well,
Because
nothing went
so
wrong.
many perceived Mumps to be a gay band. It was not a gay band. But
was a
simply
pop
because
band.
Lance was so
But that's not why it ended.
out front.
It was pop songs. It was sarcastic, happy pop songs.
Yes.
It
exactly.
was better songs than anybody else ever wrote over the course of that period. Like
In that
Whoa,
genre.
boy.
But in
yeah,
that
tell me-
genre.
write me a television song.
Oh, how hard would that be? Start noodling. You want to write a television song? Pick up your guitar and write a noodle. But it didn't fail. You went on tour with Sparks. That's a great accomplishment.
So
Amazing.
where's the question?
Nothing. What more do you fucking expect? You write pop music. The hell was The Agony is the Ecstasy? First of all, I would consider it my most unlistenable record. I would consider it something because I had to fire 1313 because they were acting like doltish dicks. And I had some shows booked for the UK. I don't know, what year was that, Christian?
81.
1981.
1981, Weasel Walter would know.
You mean I should remember?
Doesn't
that
matter.
year?
So I have some dates booked, and they're with The Cure. Never Then Nor Now, my favorite band. I don't even know how I got the gigs.
That was.
And I mean,
they were so much fun. You know who wasn't the fun? The birthday party.
Well, they weren't fun to you, but they were fun to me. We came to know each other through our affiliation with Bradley Field and Teenage Jesus. Now it's 81. I have shows, and really, I mean, it could have been another just sabotage of my own career, because I had a pretty amazing band called 1313, but they just
did.
were so infantile.
With James
No, he wasn't in it. No.
Whoever
It
he
was
was.
Cliff Martinez.
He was pretty handsome.
No, Cliff Martinez, Craig Williams, and Dick Stenny. Still one of my best albums, but they
Just name James, though.
it wasn't in it. And I had to fire
For
them.
one moment.
Who?
He was cute.
Who are you talking about?
The drummer.
Of what?
James Clavunos.
It was the bass player of Teenage Jesus. Who cares about
You
AI
are.
Spy?
Yeah.
You're going senile. I fired the
working
band,
on
and
it.
I'm still. I fired the band, and I have no idea why I called you to come in.
So it's 81. You go there. You just fired your band. Now you have this whole other thing, and
I have a tour set
and,
up.
and well, I know
And
the story,
actually,
but how's
playing
it,
with
how's
the
it
birthday
received?
party.
How's it received?
Well, look, we played the venue with the birthday party, and some people like J.G. Thirlwell thought it was a great fucking event. We had to go up and
Were
just
you having
improvise.
sex with him at the time?
No, I didn't know him then. And let me tell you this, the birthday party were not impressed, and neither were the Cure, and I have to say, it might have been some of the most horrifyingly embarrassing moments, and I am not embarrassed easily, because either it's great or it's the worst shit you've ever heard, and some of it was the worst shit I ever heard. And that was the agonies, the ecstasy. How did I rope you into that? You said it was the most fun you ever had on tour.
There was all you said was just play slow.
Drums. Had you played drums before?
No.
You were. Weasel Walter seems to think you do a very good job on that.
No, that was all there was.
But you did a
During
good
the
job.
entire tour was you said just play slow, and then I just
What was
hit
that?
the drums.
I mean, look, I'm hiring or inviting somebody who writes silly, happy pop music, whose heroes are the Kinks and the Sparks, to play drums with some of the most atrocious din I can make.
And you got me to England. We traveled all the way up and down.
And played in front of hideously horrified Cure
and we
fans.
got really, really bad reviews. But one of the reviews said, I think in Melody Maker, he said, God, he plays slow.
Nice, as I told him.
So you did your job. You did your job.
But what's interesting to me is I'm taking someone completely out of his element and inviting him into mine, and
You did.
you said you had fun.
I had one of the greatest times ever in my life.
I love you, Christian Hoffman. I don't know what fun you were having, but I remember one incident. After one of the Cure shows, I'm literally in the bathroom looking for a gun to kill myself because I'm like, this is the worst shit anybody has ever done ever in the history of everything. And you know what? That was a very good lesson because it's very easy to play the same fucking rock songs night after night. You put your balls on the line when you go out there to improv something with a bunch of people that have no reason to even be there, except we're basically raising our middle fingers going, you know what? Fuck you, Cure fans. I can't stand you panda-loving, fat boy, lipstick-wearing, really accessible pop song bitches. You don't like me? I hate you. This is the Lydia Spin with Lydia Lochimdal, Pat Loud, and Christian Hoff. Take a break. Do you recall this? Candles on girls' heads.
Yes.
You do, don't you?
Yes,
do you remember
I
that?
do.
So we did a concert
Whoa.
in Sweden, Christmas time.
Oh, they all put candles on
Well,
their
and
heads.
suddenly in the middle of our so-called set of The Agony is the Ecstasy,
Yes.
we see 12 Vestal virgins in white with candles on their head.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
But we just bang it out and carry on.
And they didn't set each other on fire, did they?
I was hoping the whole place would
You're
burn
not
to
the
the
only
ground.
person I lit candles on their ass.
Well, listen, kids, I gotta go home.
I
It's
don't
way
blame
past my
you.
bedtime.
You know what?
You've lived 94 delirious
Absolutely,
years.
I have.
You look like you're about 60, so 93 or 4 must be the new 60. Since I'm 60, it must be the new 35. Christian Hoffman, ageless, still raging. Look at him. He can't wait to say something horrible.
No, I'm not.
Thank you, Pat Loud.
I only have one thing to say to
It was
you.
fun. Good to see
Give
you.
her a little kiss on the cheek.
Thank you.